Yo-
Hola, buenos días a todas y todos. ¿Cómo están? Yo creo que podemos esperar unos 5 minutos a ver si entra alguien más. Porque no...
Buenos días a todos. Sí, sí, señora. Esperemos que aún faltan, yo creo, Divisa Hermosa, faltan, yo creo, para conectarse.
Vale, gracias. Hola a todas y todos. ¿Ustedes creen que ya están de todos los territorios? Entiendo que de Vista Hermosa hay varias personas. De Buenaventura entiendo que está María José, pero no sé si de Tibú tenemos participación de alguien.
Hola, Joana, ¿cómo estás? No, la verdad no sé.
Hola, Claudia.
Hay unos espectadores, está Adriel, Daniel y Ethan todavía como espectadores. No sé si los incluimos como en la lista, porque yo no soy panelista. No sé si esta lista sea de todos los asistentes.
Que yo tampoco no sé, pues yo creía que, bueno, Ariel también, entonces por Buenaventura.
Sí, la idea es que no sé si les pasó a ustedes, cuando ustedes se conectan, los deja ahí como, como si estuvieran solamente como asistentes y luego el equipo de transmisiones live los agrega como panelistas. Entonces, quisiéramos pedirle a la persona de transmisiones live que está con nosotros, allá ya agregó también a Adriel, ya agregó también a Daniel y nos falta tal vez Ethan. Y ya con ellos estaríamos completos para arrancar. Entonces, Johanna, cuando quieras.
Bueno, entonces quisiéramos contarles que este espacio, la idea es que hablemos un poco sobre los procesos.
Okay, I would like to tell you about the processes we're having in Vista Hermosa, Tibú. Let's talk about the teachings, the learnings, the strategies, all the topics regarding the different territories. Let me tell us that not all territories have been having the same processes because of the information hindrances. The whole idea is for this to be a conversation giving inputs to all territories. We know that in Buenaventura, in this training school in political
realización de estos diplomados y entonces
in what we call the diplomados or short courses, let's speak about how we can input within all these projects. And in the case of Tibú and Vista Hermosa, where we are starting this course, we will try to understand the needs in education these territories have and what the strategies might be. Please, let's start with the experiences. Buenaventura, María José, or Adrián, can you share the experience in the short course, what we call the diplomado? It's like a diploma course. I would like to ask David, the Vista Hermosa, with the possibility of having camera and audio. Can the transmission team help us including him? David from Vista Hermosa with audio and camera. Just that. Unfortunately, I had to interrupt for this. I was giving the word to Maria Jose and Ariel. Can you tell us about your experience in the diploma course in Buenaventura? Could you tell us about the experiences, the teachings, and your experience, personal experience? Hello, this is Maria Jose. Good morning to everyone. Thank you, Joanna, for the space. My name is Maria Jose Ruiz. I am part of the Memory and Social House in Buenaventura. I've been working for a year and a half in the popular political training house or school. We did this diploma course last year in protecting spaces for kids, where we had the participation of teachers and students. And this year, I have been working in the facilitation of social dialogue in the territories with leaders from Buenaventura. they participate from in different processes at an institutional level and at a social level. I think one of the learnings we have in this space, this popular political training school, they have been working for 7 years in these training spaces. What they understand is that they might have training and knowledge of communities and leaders focused on the popular training, understanding this is a popular training school. So it may input in the certification of processes, and for them to be able to work in a more technical level so they can demonstrate before certain organizations their knowledge. These trainings, the more significant trainings in the processes I have been accompanying is have to do with the need in the of integration of all processes. Furthermore than the dialogue, what we need is a strengthening in the integration of local processes, as well as in the possibility of entering into a dialogue with the people who are already doing processes here. I would like initially to state this topic. In this facilitation process, there are more than 40 leaders who have been working for some time, and in this space they have found some ways of meeting and dialoguing with the other so they can exchange experiences, and a learning that we have had with the tutors. Uh, there are many capabilities within the territories, and unfortunately, they haven't been recognized. So the teaching goes on one hand, and and on the other hand, the experts and scholars from university as well as from the students. The popular training course allows for an exchange and an enriching mm, space of knowledge and learning on one hand and the other. Thank you, Maria Jose. Now from Vista Hermosa, who would like to share? Maybe David, a member from the juvenile platform, the youngster platform, Cecilia from the Organization of Women. I don't know if you know it. Yes, good morning. Regarding the process they have had in Vista Hermosa, how do you see the state of education there, what the needs are in the territory nowadays? Thank you. Good morning to everyone. The processes of training we've had in the municipality on behalf of dialogues in audiovisual topics. The needs are multiple within the territory since we have base women organization working here, as well as the juvenile platform or youngsters platform. And one of the big needs we have here are in the social dialogue. That is a need. It would be enriching for this territory if we were able to replicate or facilitate the social dialogue. Now, speaking from the organization on behalf of the women organizations, we work technically with all the organizations of the women. These are empirical knowledge worked from the territories with the communities, but we do have the aspirations and the priority needs in having access to diploma courses where we can talk about family crimes, as well as human rights for women and family law. So we could work in the processes that we might be able to implement later on. For the kids, we also have the needs of protecting spaces, protective spaces, not only being able to have the platform, but in the base organizations of the territories for us to be able to look at the new generations, thinking of this generational relay. We want them to be prepared, but have no violence in their teaching and learning experience. David, what is the need of the education needs within Vista Hermosa? Good morning. My name is David. I am a professional social worker on behalf of the local mayor's office in Vista Hermosa. I am part of the youngsters platform. And here in the municipality, we have had different processes where the pillar for everything has been the strengthening of juvenile organizations to be able to apply the public policies of the municipality. Now, highlighting of what my colleague or my companion was saying, we're very active from the administration, both and the platform. We have been implementing several topics along with USAID and FAO. We are leading this educational topic. We have wanted to implement an agreement with SENA, the central training, for them to offer different careers for this territory. These municipalities of the sixth category do not only depend on the municipality, but the SENA in Granada, Meta, as well as the other SENA in Villavicencio, Meta. They are the ones who offer education. And we made a process this year. We brought SENA this year to the territory so we can have a good education for the territory. We know it's difficult. It's difficult for SENA. In the municipality, we had careers which had this disconnection with reality, disconnected with what the youth in the municipality was needing and wanting. So we requested the presence of Mr. Freddy. He met the mayor and he committed to changing the careers for the youngsters to be motivated to study, and more than 200 youngsters appeared before the mayor's office and the SENA, and we now have careers which are within the public policy for youth. And through this platform of youthness and the mayor's office, we have been training. I have been supporting the social dialogue too, that we have been working with some Javeriana teachers, professors, as well as Cesar. As Cristina was mentioning, we need training in the family. You know that Vista Hermosa is a territory which has been hit through violence. We now have the 042 alert regarding armed recruitment. And what we want is protective space for youngsters, as well as everything regarding memory. with the purpose of not having a repetition of violence, so we can focus on historic memory.
Personas puedan percibir, ¿sí me van a entender? Porque muchas veces nosotros que somos del territorio, pues que hemos tenido tantas afecciones con este tema de la violencia, muchas veces dejamos de un lado la memoria. Entonces hay que enseñarles a los más jóvenes, a los más pequeños, de lo que pasó en el territorio y de que ellos entiendan de que son situaciones que no se
We
pueden.
have to teach the smaller kids about the capabilities. They should be focused on the empowering of people. All these applications, since we have had going further for women in the rural areas, as well as in the specific needs of the family. I would like to highlight within the municipality, there are several institutions. We want to have international cooperation, FAO, USAID, as well as other institutions making presence in this municipality. We want to have real and actual integration. What we have is that.
Muchas gracias, David. ¿Quién más quisiera participar?
David, thank you. Who would like to participate on behalf of Vista Hermosa?
Bueno, buenos días para todos y todas. Me alegra mucho estar acá con ustedes. Compartir ese espacio con ustedes es de gran alegría y gran privilegio estar acá, expresando cada una de las necesidades que tiene
I
Vista
would like to share the needs of Vista Hermosa. I am the secretary of the Courageous Women office in Vista Hermosa. I am also a leader of the social network of youngsters. What we have is a need of violence in social areas. Women do not know what kinds of violence we have and how to train them. We need diploma courses for women who have a great talent, but we also need to strengthen knowledge. We would like to have in the veeduría trainings regarding focus, so we can transmit to all the women around, so we can try in our surroundings. The kids in Vista Hermosa require higher education support, as well as using technological devices. These country people do not have that training, and we have had lots of violence. Many youngsters do not know how to manage technological tools. We would like to have this urgently. We also need higher education for us defenders regarding gender-based violences.
Muchas gracias a ti, Angie.
Thank you,
¿Alguien más
Angie.
que quisiera compartir algo?
Somebody else who would like to share?
Bueno, ¿tenemos algún participante de TIU? Es que no sé si hay alguien de TIU con nosotros.
Somebody in Tibu who might help us?
Bueno, al parecer no hay nadie de TIU.
Somebody in Tibu who would like to participate? Ariel, would you like to share? about the diploma.
Quizás ahondar un poco sobre los aprendizajes y los retos.
Maybe deepen regarding teachings and challenges in the diplomas. I was thinking what challenges you might have and how to practice. All these projects have to do with the diploma courses for the communities.
María José, no sé si es que Ariel no está o algo pasa con él, pero tú nos podrías entonces contar un poco de cuáles crees que son los retos que vienen para el diplomado y que vienen para los diplomantes, digamos que llegan con varios proyectos comunitarios de sus organizaciones y cómo pueden estos proyectos, digamos que ser aterrizados.
Okay, would you like to land off all the needs? Yes, Maria Jose. Thank you, Joanna. I was thinking also regarding the challenges that we've had regarding pandemics and in the national manifestations or riots. Last year, we did the course virtually since we have bad internet connections and the access of the community in Buenaventura to internet is very difficult. So maybe if we created ways to guarantee semi-presentialness, being present part-time, or for example, for leaders who are older and do not know how to manage the internet connection or use the electronic tools for them to be able to participate. The people who are in these diploma courses, the landing off of their projects, we have to highlight that a characteristic of these diploma courses is one of the challenges to be able to certify yourself is formulating a project, an intervention or an action project, depending on the topic of the diploma course. Last year, the topic had to do with protective spaces for kids. We had the support of Javeriana University and other tutors and organizations who have supported us in teaching us how to make a project, what institutions we can have access to, what financing opportunities we have, since the ideas happen and are present, but it is difficult to make them into practice, to turn them into practice, since we don't have the resources or the knowledge to be able to manage these resources. So maybe the challenge for this year for the people who are within the diploma of facilitation of the social dialogue and understanding the context we are living in nowadays, we make the calling to be able to think of the proposals people have thought of, how to implement them within this context we are living in nowadays. Now, the accompaniment, the help from this dialogue project at Universidad Javeriana, the one you have given us, maybe what we have for the future, for the near future, is to be able to formulate these projects and be able to implement strategies that might facilitate social dialogue within violent contexts, understanding that the situation in Buenaventura, even though we might be within these national riots, these issues have arisen and are more more visualized. So the challenge is how to guarantee the implementation of projects within a social conflict situation where even youngsters and kids are direct victims. And that is the big challenge that we might have from now on. Thank you, Maria Jose. In both interventions, you have mentioned the importance that these spaces be participational and that there might be a strong articulation among institutions. From your experience, which could be the strategies for these projects to be participational and inclusive within the region? I don't know who would like to speak. This should be a wider conversation among all.
Yo considero y creo que para ser más incluyente.
I would like to consider that for us to be participational in the Vista Hermosa municipality, in training and strengthening, it's always done in the city or in the municipality, but the access for peasants at the countryside is very small since the transportation expenses are high for them. It would be great if we were able to take it to the rural areas for them to be able to access to internet. It's much easier for us to go to the countryside than for them to come for their training to the municipality. That could be one of these strategies we could implement. Besides, we could also articulate it with the communitary unions and the different social spaces within the different areas. In nucleus work, as we call it, we can implement these multiple actions for them to be able to really have direct access to education, so we can comply with the expectations of organizations from the Impulse Committee 25 or in the same not only for it to be included for the rural area. That has been the priority need. The violence, intra-family violence have encompassed the victims with their aggressors. It's difficult to keep on supporting since these women haven't been trained. There are women who depend completely on that aggressive person, and they don't have any other way of supporting themselves, and then they have to undergo all these undignifying treatment on behalf of their aggressors. At the point of it's not only giving them the entry, but allowing for the peasants who are the most needed ones in these pandemic times. Good morning. Thank you. David, Ethan David, I think this has to do with the political will on behalf of the institutions and understanding that in these pandemics times, we have to reinvent ourselves and understand how we can get to the population, since it is understandable that uh, all the reflections regarding the pandemics, and as well as in the social riots, we have to stop these methodology of the decentralization of processes. We have to understand that these sixth category municipalities need sectorialized and specific reality. So that's why the projects and the policies for these municipalities have to be sectorized and focused only and specifically on these municipalities. The reality in Vistahermosa is different from the Acacias and Villavicencio needs, and it is very easy, but when we have action this way, we generate damage to the community. Sometimes the people do not have access to the tools. We have to understand what strategies we can give them for them to access to these kinds of spaces. From the platform of youngsters, we have to create a center of juvenile welfare where we might have space to an access so we can get to our classes and tools so we can be empowered and train ourselves as people. Since the reality in Vistahermosa is very complex, it's difficult for people in rural areas to access these spaces since they do not have the way to access, to go to the municipality, to the urban area. These policies should be focused on the realities of Vistahermosa, not the realities of Villavicencio and Acacias. We see that the projects they do not know the complex realities we have within the rural municipalities. If we do not have a political will of decentralizing these processes, it will be very difficult for social dialogue to generate empowerment within the territories. Thank you.
Bueno, no sé si se le corta a David. ¿Alguien más quisiera hacer un comentario sobre este tema?
Okay, great. Would anybody like to make any other comment regarding this topic?
Gracias, Ariel. Sigue.
No, quería presentar uno de los
I would like to share one of the big challenges we have within this territory, which is being able to understand all this potential we have had since the manifestations of youngsters, with all the quantity of proposals we have in all languages, artistic, pedagogical, as well as in the topic regarding the ethnics, the cultural knowledge, the associational dynamics, as well as the social dynamics. We have a great potential and a big challenge, which is to keep on inputting in the discussion, and youngsters are part of it. Before these social riots, it was difficult, or maybe it wasn't important for us to include them in these languages we are talking about in this forum. The big challenge is to understand it, capitalize it, and how through or from the territories to keep on potentiating the participation of youngsters in politics, in local issues, in the local development, at the port of Buenaventura, where it is evident that we have a critical situation of human rights, the socio-economic needs, the lack of access for youngsters to have higher education, as well as elementary and high school in conditions which are underhuman. It is difficult for us to question the system, the social movements which have been impacted in these youngsters' dynamics. This is one of the big challenges we have in the future. At a local level, we're thinking about it, and we have been integrating it. And I think that the next diploma course, I don't know if the 9th or the 10th, I don't remember, it should be a juvenile exercise for us to be able to work with youngsters. They are meeting in a virtual way. They talk about mental health. They talk about gender issues, inclusion, development from the optics of youngsters, many things that will come to potentiate this popular youngster school we have here. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Adriel. ¿Alguien más quisiera hacer un comentario o participar?
Adriel, thank you for your comment. Anybody would like to participate besides?
Bueno, yo era para decirles también que totalmente de acuerdo con lo que nos ha dicho David. Es
I
muy
would like
cierto.
to share what David has talked about. Whenever you bring in Vista Hermosa, they always train, and yes, we have good training. Enriching the knowledge is something that has no price, but it is also important what happens in Vista Hermosa. Vista Hermosa is not a municipality like Villavicencio or like Acracias or Granada. Vista Hermosa has been a municipality affected by armed groups, illegal armed groups. This is mostly rural. Youngsters are peasants with no opportunities for them in education due to the low income, even though we have a lot of interest in developing. So what we request is that in the diploma courses or other strategies like higher education careers, please take into account the needs of them, what they want. It has to be very specific in the way we want to teach them, or they want to be taught. In the rural areas, it is difficult to have internet. So it would be great if we were able to have a semi-presential way or strategy. We also would like to have in presence, we have highlighted that regarding education. You always give talks about things that youngsters do not want, but we have to take into account training for the constant reality.
El tema de capacitaciones, que es un tema que hemos visto que en la pandemia se ha disparado y más que todo con la virtualidad, es que esas capacitaciones no...
Regarding training, we would like to have a process with the learning for people. I would like to refer to the fact that if we want to have training in health, the institutions should be present. present in it. So knowledge is understood as a construction process, not as a destruction process. The issues of Vista Hermosa are historical. They're not current only. The whole idea is growing and constructing. You who are institutions, whenever you come with training courses, people should have it as a process, not only as a training. It's not just receiving instructions, but for them to understand that knowledge becomes into change, not change into reality. It is difficult for people to understand what's happening. It's for you to understand it, for you to take it into account. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Angie y David. ¿Alguien más quisiera hacer algún comentario o alguna pregunta?
Somebody else would like to make a comment or ask a question? Thank you, David, Ethan. I would like to make a question. It called my attention regarding the alert of Vista Hermosa with respect to recruitment on behalf of the illegal armed groups. I would like us to understand or think regarding training. What would counteract the recruitment? Which would be the strategies in terms of training that we could input so we could face this scourge that this alert has created? The topic of recruitment mostly. The question is for the people from Vista Hermosa, the people present in Vista Hermosa.
Considero que en el municipio para contrarrestar y
I
para
consider that in the municipality to counteract and minimize the topic regarding recruitment, we would like to strengthen the life projects. Vista Hermosa in these times of pandemics and with everything we have lived on in all these conflicts and wars, economy have lowered highly, have lowered a lot since we are requesting as one of the 9 points in the social riots is the eradication, since it has created one, that the armed groups, for them to do the recruitment, since in the territories we do not have employment nor education, since they are far from the urban areas and people do not have access to internet, so we cannot move, since we cannot move the kids, the youngsters, to train them, to educate them at the cities. Secondly, there is no internet on the countryside. And thirdly, economics, the income has been lowered with these pandemics. So we have demanded from SENA not only for them to bring the training regarding agriculture, because with the change in connectiveness and the changes in life in these municipalities, kids have other aspirations, other hopes, not only for them to be trained within the urban area, but also in the countryside, for us to make it easy for them to be trained at their houses. So it is easy for them. We do not want for the kids to travel away or to be recruited. I am thinking of taking my 3 youngsters, not only for them not to be recruited in the countryside nor in the urban areas. Economics is very low. The Artemisa plan is the non-compliance of the government in the peace treaties have affected us in the rural areas. If we want to face this scourge that has given us so much pain to our families, what we want is to join willpower, political willpower, as well as the articulation with the entities where we're talking with the youngsters in the countryside and take them to the rural areas, since we have very small number of slots. And since they have to pay for political favors, the access is not for everyone, just for the politicians.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, Cristina,
Thank you, Cristina, for this
por ese panorama. Creo que es bien interesante.
panorama. I think it's very interesting and complex,
Y hay que tenerlo muy en cuenta.
and we have to take it into account.
¿Alguien más quisiera responder a esta pregunta que hizo Claudia?
Anybody else would like to answer to the question that Claudia posed, or make any other question, maybe?
Bueno, referenciando lo que, escuchando lo que decía Cristina, es muy
Regarding what Cristina was mentioning, it is very true. Mostly recruitment for youngsters happens in the rural areas where youngsters do not have access to education. We have very small number of positions. David was talking about Sena. Sena is a great opportunity, but it is very limited in slots. Not all youngsters had access to it. A girl that I know that is just barely earning to support her family, more than the opportunities are being lost because of CISBEN, the health. They raised the rating to people. If people study, it doesn't mean that they are not poor anymore. When they raise the CISBEN and when they talk about being into youngsters in action at SENA, the same thing. Slots are very limited. The rankings are very high. If somebody came from Javeriana University would come to train, they should not limit the number of slots. It should be for everyone interested. If they just come for a limited number of youngsters, we want for all the youngsters to be able to take them. We do not forget about our roots, but we also need for these youngsters to raise their bar. As youngsters, we have opportunities, but if we don't have higher education, we lose those opportunities. We need a special focus in rural youngsters so we can have education and the way to access higher education. And then we will have less forced recruitment in the rural areas. Thank you. Thank you, Angie.
Bueno, yo creo que ya para ir cerrando, porque tendríamos que ir en 15 minutos nuevamente a la otra sala. A la
Okay, in
inicial.
15 minutes, we're opening another space. So I would like to ask this last question. We have already spoken about the needs of Villahermosa, the challenges we have in Buenaventura, and the strategies they have used from their training experiences in both of these territories. I would like to know, on behalf of from your experiences, what tools you need in these regions for us to be able to make the training courses more accessible. What tools are important for you to generate dialogues and encounters? I don't know if from Buenaventura you can comment.
María José o Adriel, ¿alguno está por acá todavía?
Maria Jose or Ariel, are you here still? Yes, should we go to the other room? Yes, but in 15 minutes, could you input regarding the diploma in Buenaventura? What are the tools you have used to make these training processes useful so you can have the exchange of experience among all the organizations involved? Yes. Well, we do not have a specific determined tool, very strict. What we have done is a collective construction exercise. What we have been doing is adapting all the processes from a vision, a popular vision, from that vision of knowledge, of construction of knowledge. It's not that one teaches and knows and the others come to learn. These diplomas are focused on leaders, teachers, and all the stakeholders in the process. They're not open to everyone, but they also answer for the needs on behalf of the territories. In these dialogues, we have implemented exchanges. We know that in other spaces, it has been done, so we have brought them here. We have had a communication topic in the before this exercise. We carried out a communication exercise where we could implement communicational strategies and tools. From the popular knowledge, it allows for us to self-criticize ourselves and for all the stakeholders to strengthen and generate bigger transformations at a local level. We do not have a determined strategy, and the diploma is that strategy precisely. That's where the exercises happen. In these pandemics times, as Maria Jose was mentioning, we had to implement virtual tools that we couldn't use before, since in the territories there are no tools like computers and cell phones. And maybe you have a cell phone, but you do not have internet, or you don't have the money to pay for an internet plan. So what we built was generating this dynamic and being able to answer to this situation. And we have been alternating the virtual and presential processes. For communities, it's important to meet personally, to be able to have the opportunity of meeting, obviously with all the cares in the health ways. The virtuality is important, but it's important for us to meet as people. We have made progress. People who have historically participated now are leaders in other organizations within the community unions Maybe teachers, for example, are very active within their schools. We also have people working within the mayor's office, and they have led dynamics within this process. And at the same time, we have input to the strengthening of social movement. We have made these changes. We have these transformations. Jefferson in Buenaventura, with a teacher from University of Chehel, we had 4 people who had studied with us, and we were reflecting, analyzing how they had done. We had not dimensioned the impact that this school has made in these people, council members and teachers and leaders who have been trained, and because of that, they have made their improvements in a personal way as in a social way. That would be my comment.
Gracias, Ariel. Y no sé si alguien de Vista Hermosa nos quiera.
Thank you, Adriel. If anybody in Vista Hermosa could share with us what tools would be useful for us to be able to have these encounters in training spaces so we could achieve as in Buenaventura, for us to be able to carry out from the community level, from the popular level, what exchange of experience you could tell us about. I would like to input something as a solution. I would like to input this comment. Maybe what we need is internet hotspots, understanding what advantages we have in the area, in the rural areas, so we could have access to education in virtuality. I would like to take advantage. Yeah, definitely we need better internet connection. We have the interest in learning. I am a student, for example, from Sena. It is a beautiful process, and now I am at the university, but within pandemics, it is difficult to pay for the Wi-Fi network. Even if you have a router, the connection is very complex, very low. That is one of the limitations we have. If we could improve it, more youngsters would be able to take advantage of education. Thank you. Thank you, Angie. Would anybody else like to participate in a comment? Yes, I also see very important for this to become more social, more communitary, this work with the integration of associations and community unions, as well as the mayor's organization. How can we be able to focus into education, prevention, and protection, both of youngsters and the general population, and be able to articulate this process, not doubting on what we have to do, but based on the realities of the territories. I consider also that these are the strategies to be managed within the municipality. In this municipality, we have lots of spaces, many people with high capabilities, with aspirations, youngsters who I might give you an example of plateau communicating members, llaneritos comunicando. Everything which had to do with ICT technologies, they were able to implement processes, and we were able to implement these topics. If we were able to implement them in the countryside, we could rescue kids,
sociales, políticas y económicas que deben ser
youngsters who, because of social and economic needs, they have to take other roads regarding the strategies so we can protect them. They are fighting and in a resistance way. They have been demanding their rights, both in these riots times as well as in the economic needs. Some are just underaged to be able to work, and economics have been lowering. So we should work jointly so we can protect the weaker ones, who are the youngsters as well as kids within the territories, both in Meta and Norte de Santander, especially Tibu.
Muchas gracias, Cristina. ¿Alguien más quisiera hacer algún
Thank you,
comentario final?
Christina. Would anybody else like to make a final comment? Good morning. Good afternoon now. Thank you. I had the chance of being invited to this forum thanks to the fact that I am a teacher at the educational unit in this municipality school. I would like to reiterate what other participants have mentioned. Everything is very important. Yes, it is true that we want to have to make it more specific, the education in this context. The authorities have wanted to give us opportunities, but I think that one of the participants, the stakeholders, mentioned that it's important for youngsters to be able to question the system, the social movements, but also I think that it is necessary not to leave the possibility of them questioning themselves. If we don't question ourselves, maybe we will fall into the repetition of this story once and again, going into a circle, and maybe people later on will question us as victimary, not victims. One of the things we mentioned was the issue of claiming for our rights, but I think it is also needed for us to claim or tell them to sacrifice so we can achieve the goals, because maybe my son or daughter later on will be a victimary in their home in the future. So I think that even though kids and youngsters are weak and need support, we have also to question them, because otherwise we would have a vacuum where people, where we can put as example people who have lower resources than us and have been able to input into their families and society. I think it's important to keep on questioning everything, but within this questioning, we have to question ourselves. So with the same strength we claim for our rights, we also comply with our duties and our charges within this society, even though the state is unfulfilling, uncomplying for all our needs, but also it is needed that we question ourselves and youngsters for them to have in their hearts the personal initiative that having lots or little, they can turn over situations. So within the historical processes and the family dynamics, we can change history. Having lots or having little, we can change our history within our family surroundings. If we're fighting against an intra-family violence, we know that youngsters who are not parents yet, for them to have engraved in their hearts a clear purpose of making their future children not to be part of this family, intra-family violence. Otherwise, we would keep on the same cycle and they would become victimary. Probably their kids will claim for them to comply with their duties, not only to claim for their rights. Thank you for your intervention. Okay, I think we have to go to the other space. The link is here within the chat. So let's leave this room and enter the other. Thank you, and may you be blessed this afternoon. Have a nice day.
Muchas gracias, Joana.
Thank you, Joanna.
Gracias por todo, Joana.